we have a candidate running on the Democrat side for the Senate in Wisconsin who is as radical as they get. His name is Mandela Barnes, and he was a state representative for a number of years, but not many. Nobody's clear on what he did before that. What's clear is he never worked in the private sector. So he gets elected to the state house. He gets elected lieutenant governor, and much like the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania, Fetterman, he's a crackpot. And this guy, Mandela Barnes, after attending one of Jeremiah Wright's most racist, anti-Semitic, anti-American preachings, stated that Jeremiah Wright was a brilliant man. He supported him. Now he's trying to walk it back, but it's on video. He wanted to, and does, defund the police. And so he says, I never said defund the police, I said redirect the resources. Now, I only speak English fluently. I don't speak any other language. Redirect resources means defund. So he wants to defund the police. He also supported 50% of the prisoners in Wisconsin being released. 50%. I mean, that's more than Fetterman, who said 1/3. And I don't know where they get these numbers from, but it doesn't much matter. And he opposes the Second Amendment. So if he has his way, no cops. Really, half the criminals are out on the street, and you can't defend yourself. What kind of country is that? Mandela Barnes will vote for high inflation. He will vote for high gas taxes. He will vote for more deficits. He will vote to keep the border open. He will vote for critical race theory. He will vote for destroying women's sports. He'll vote down the line. He is an absolute card-carrying Marxist. Well, he denies this police stuff that he wanted to defund, redirect. And here's CNN's coverage of it. Go.
There's a tight U.S. Senate battle in Wisconsin. Polls show the race between incumbent Republican Ron Johnson and his Democratic challenger Mandela Barnes is very close. Crime and public safety have become a major focus. A new review by CNN's K-File found Barnes previously signaled his support for removing police funding and abolishing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE. But those views contradict Barnes' recent campaign ad.
Look, we knew the other side would make up lies about me to scare you. Now they're claiming I want to defund the police and abolish ICE. That's a lie. I'll make sure our police have the resources and training they need to keep our community safe.
Let's bring in CNN's Andrew Kaczynski. So good to see you. So tell us more about what you found.
Yeah, so our review did find, looking at his social media activity and past public statements, that in the past he did signal support for removing funding from police and abolishing ICE. Now, on defunding the police, Barnes has never specifically used that phrase, but he has time and again in the past said he supports redirecting funding from police, moving it to social services as recently as 2020.
So if I wanted to redirect funding from social services to the police, what do you think the left would say? That he wants to defund social services, right? If I said, let's redirect funding out of Social Security to support the police, people would say he wants to defund Social Security, and they'd be right. So when Mandela Barnes says, let's redirect funding from the police to social services, he wants to defund the police. Now, let me ask you a question. People in Wisconsin and elsewhere, you got crime going through the roof, murder, rape, other types of brutality taking place under the light of day. Is this the kind of guy you want in the U.S. Senate? I mean, putting even aside his history, is he going to support the cops? Will he support more funding? Will he support the Justice Department attacking local police? That he'll support. So you want a leader in the Senate who's going to stand up for the victims, not the criminals. Well, Mandela Barnes is the criminal's favorite candidate. Go ahead.
He said that there was a priorities mismatch between spending on police and spending on other social services.
Yeah, right. We never spend enough on social services, do we, America? We're going broke spending money on social services in this country. We're now $31 trillion in the red, and that's just on budget. If you go off budget, the number's close to $300 trillion in obligations the federal government has to us or to our neighbors. It is unsustainable in the mid-run for sure, in the long run certainly, and likely in the short run. Go ahead.
As recently, again, as 2020, he said defunding isn't as aggressive as many folks are painting it out to be. Now, look, this has become...
So he says defunding the police, he says in 2020, isn't as aggressive, I'm quoting, as some folks pointed out to be. Well, then what is it? This is a failed Marxist policy that the Marxists still support. Here's the problem. We've talked about this before. Their ideology commands that they defund the police. Their ideology commands that they undermine the military. Their ideology commands that the border's wide open. Their ideology commands a massive centralized welfare state that controls your every actions, what you drive, what you don't drive, what you eat, what you don't eat, and on and on and on. The consequences are misery, impoverishment, tyranny. So they're getting what they want, right? Massive debt, open borders, massive increase in fuel prices, massive inflation, stagflation. We've only seen the beginning of it, folks. It's going to get much, much worse because they've gotten pretty much what they want. But the politics of that doesn't fly with most of the American people, because most of you don't want to be poor. You don't want electric vehicles. You don't want brownouts and blackouts. You want fuel to be available and relatively inexpensive, which it was. You want to make decisions about your children's own education rather than the teachers' unions and their radical left agenda. You want the border secure. You don't want fentanyl flowing in here. You don't want the sex trade going on in the border and elsewhere, and so forth and so on. These are Democrat Party-made policies, but they don't fly with the American people. So they're going to keep pushing these policies, but they're going to lie about them. Keep pushing the policies and lie about them. That's why they're spending $250 million on ads, trashing their Republican opponents and lying about who they actually are and what they actually stand for. Mandela Barnes is a Marxist. He's a bigot. He hates the country. He supports criminals. He hates the cops. He hates America's founding. Now, if you agree with him, then vote for him. But you need to know that's where he stands. And Ron Johnson, his opponent, is a fantastic senator. Go ahead.
A serious issue in the race. Last night, we saw in the Senate debate, Johnson hitting Barnes pretty hard over these past positions. Barnes basically countered, citing the January 6th riot at the Capitol, saying Johnson supported that, in which 140 police officers were injured. When it comes to abolishing ICE, there's also a pretty long record there of Barnes signaling his support for that position. He posed...
So if Barnes has his way, there'd be no ICE. Now, what is ICE? Well, you have the Border Patrol that protects the border. And what does ICE do? Immigrations, customs enforcement. It prevents or tries to drugs from coming into the country, terrorists from coming into the country. It manages these people when they come into the country to hunt them down and get them deported. It picks them up from local law enforcement and state law enforcement. If you don't have ICE, you have no federal law enforcement in the interior of the United States that is managing these threats, these immigration threats, again, from other countries or drug cartels or anything else. So half the prisons should be emptied in Wisconsin. The cops should be defunded. There should be no ICE, and you shouldn't have a right to bear arms. Is that what you want, America? Wisconsin, is this what you want? How is he even at 40-some-odd% of support? Go ahead.
Holding a T-shirt that said abolish ICE after responding to someone on social media saying, you know, I want that T-shirt. He liked a lot of tweets during this period calling for abolishing ICE. He attended a rally that said it was for abolishing ICE and spoke to a group that has the same position, basically saying we need to abolish ICE. And at that event, he cited climate change and said, the wrong ice is melting. We reached out to Barnes, to his campaign, to ask about this, and they gave us a statement that basically said, look, he doesn't support defunding the police, and he doesn't support abolishing ICE.
In other words, they lie through their teeth, and they hope the people are stupid enough. This guy, I'm no fan of CNN or necessarily this guy, but at least the truth kind of squirted out there about this guy, Mandela Barnes. But it's not just Mandela Barnes. It's John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. It's these other candidates running in these other states for the Democrat Party. In North Carolina, the Democrat there is another radical lying about her agenda. You just have to understand, Warnock in Georgia is another radical lying about his agenda. The way you stop this is to defeat these people.
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.